You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan White.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today we're going to be talking gear, specifically new gear from Canon and Sigma. Today's episode is a follow-up to the OPTIC Conference 2020, which B&H hosted in early June and was sponsored by Canon, Sigma, Sony, Nikon, Luxley, Panasonic, Fujifilm, and Olympus. But normally at these events, we pull aside gear reps from most of the major companies and ask them about their latest and greatest. This year, we're doing it virtually. Speaking of Olympus, after 80 plus years producing unique cameras, including the half-frame Olympus pen film camera, the original OM series film cameras, the current OMD digital cameras, and my all-time favorite, the limited edition O product from about 20-something years ago, Olympus has announced that they plan on spinning off their camera division to a separate company that, according to the plans, will not only continue production of Olympus cameras and lenses, but continue R&D for new products. So we look forward to see what's going to be happening with that. So if you're an Olympus user, you hear that they're going bust. No, they're just separating. The company is going to continue, which is a good thing. We also want to mention that our Leica Photo Challenge wrapped up last week, and the entries are currently in the capable hands of the judges. Stay tuned to find out who the winner will be. We also remind everybody to stay safe. Things are getting better here in New York, but to all of our friends around the country and the world, please maintain social distance, wear masks when around others, and make safety for your fellow photographers and humans a number one priority. And remember, if you think wearing a paper mask is annoying, and it is, speak to anybody who's been on a respirator before waving them off. John, I think you wanted to throw something in here at this point.
Yeah, well, I do. I mean, we've been going through some crazy times, as everyone knows, and we're working from our own homes, but a lot's going on in the world. And personally, I just want to give a shout out for those that are peacefully protesting for a better future, who want a country that is rid of fear. Also within the photo industry, we need to do better, people. Let's just leave it at that.
Ditto you on that.
So let's talk gear.
Okay, thanks, John. And speaking of gear, our first guest is Rudy Winston, who is the technical advisor at Canon USA. Rudy, welcome back to the show. This is like your fifth appearance here, and I don't know if John mentioned it to you, but at 5 appearances, you're supposed to bring in a box of donuts. So now we're remote, but I'm just wanting you to know that God willing, we're going to get back in the studio, and you'll be back for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or whatever. Okay. I'm not going to forget about the donuts. Anyway, welcome back to the show. And, I also have to credit you with something. You've been here, it's 5 times now. And every single time you're on, I try to trip you up and ask you about all the new stuff that I think is coming out. I've even made up stuff. And you never fall for it. You're really good about that. You really do hold the company line. I respect you for that. So that said, we're not going to ask you about rumors today. But we will talk about, what is going on as far as your current products and anything new that has come out since the last time we spoke.
Well, I'm happy to. First off, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on with B&H. Always a pleasure. And this is the 5th time. Happy to do 5 more. And delighted to be with you folks.
We should live and be well. That's all I can say.
There you go. In terms of what's new with Canon, if we look at over the last, 9 months, give or take, the end of 2019 and into 2020, there have been some interesting developments. We had a couple of very interesting APS-C cameras come out toward the end of 2019. The 32 million pixel EOS 90D and EOS M6 Mark II cameras, which both really give excellent performance as well as high resolution, the highest resolution available currently in an APS-C sensor size camera, if I'm not mistaken. So those are certainly 2 very interesting highlights in our system toward the end of 2019. And now in 2020, the big news, of course, was, in terms of a product that's actually been announced, was the top of the line EOS 1DX Mark III, which we came out with early in the year, which just simply has marvelous performance capabilities and so on. We also introduced the Rebel T8i, which brings some interesting new features to the Rebel in terms of things like a quick control dial on the back of the camera. So the camera's really kind of grown up a bit in terms of the design relative to previous Rebels. But the big news.
If I could just jump in for 1 second on that one, because when I was putting together my notes for this episode, I was going over the Rebel. It's now the T8i. Now I remember when the original Rebel came out, and it was like 3-something megapixels, and it was $1,000 or something, and it was a big deal. It was an impressive camera. It was revolutionary. My point though is that there's been just about, with few exceptions, every single new Rebel has really been an interesting new camera, not just a little, cosmetic makeover. 1 or 2 were. But you look at how these cameras have evolved, and you look about what you get in a very, very affordable package, 24 megapixels, 4K, all kinds of stuff. And it's amazing. I'm really impressed. I would say that if something had to represent how digital technology came about, the Rebel, I would say, would have to be like one of those little highlight markers saying like this camera was kind of representative of the beginning and continues to go. Anyway, my little blurb. Go ahead.
No, that's a great point, Alan. And it's sometimes you need to take a step back. I've been in the industry long enough and been in photography long enough that I can remember the days back in the manual focus era with classic SLRs, film SLRs, where if you looked at the features in today's entry-level cameras, you'd think if you took them back to the 1990s or the 1980s, you'd think you died and gone to heaven in terms of just what is in these cameras, their capabilities.
Yeah.
It's easy to take for granted in today's world. So you bring up an excellent point. That perspective is a good one. We understand the Rebel isn't the right camera for every photographer, but it's been the right answer for many, many people.
It's very impressive. I mean, the learning curve is zip. And if you want to go deep, you can. And if you really want to get into the thing and use it as a real camera, it is a real camera. So
that's the point.
It fits a lot of little niches and can make a lot of people happy. It's not the camera for everybody.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. I mean, is it true that the Rebels are often used as kind of a experimental camera? Let's say they introduce features that might have made their way up from a point and shoot even, and then this may be the first time they're shot in a DSLR. And then they see if they work on, on professional quote unquote cameras. Is that something that's been done over the years?
Well, there have been instances where you probably could make that case, even though our engineers don't come out and say that. But think about this. They know that going into it, that a Rebel is likely to be in the hands of many, many photographers. Granted, many of them are entry-level type of customers and casual amateurs. But the point is, if they're trying to see the feasibility of certain types of features, that is a great litmus test. How does it work in the hands of what is often a non-expert audience?
I know one photographer that, again, he's a Canon shooter. He's got all the big toys, but he keeps a Rebel around. He actually uses that for high risk situations. If something had to go wrong and he lost a camera, he can get very good results out of the Rebel. Okay, and if something happens, it's not the end of the world.
There you go. Affordability is a great thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what about the DX Mark III? Anything that you want to let us know that, because I remember talking about that before, the world quote unquote ended there. What's going on with that and what's new in that camera?
Well, it's an interesting transition going from the Rebel to the top of the line 1DX Mark III.
It's called soup to nuts.
There you go. And, the point I think that I always tried to underscore with that camera when we first announced it and we first introduced it before, as you said, the world kind of came to an end in air quotes, is that even though it looks on the outside very similar to previous 1DX models, virtually everything inside that camera has been redesigned for all intents and purposes, structurally, electronically, and so on. You can think of that as a brand new camera. And the beauty of that camera is not just that it can shoot 16 frames a second with autofocus. So, I mean, of course, it's a fantastic sports and action camera, a fantastic wildlife camera for things like birds in flight and so on, arguably one of the best cameras in the world for that. But to me, in handling that camera, it's the beauty of that camera, if you know cameras, is what you experience when you just put it in single shot mode. Just take one shot at a time. It is so responsive. It is so immediate in terms of its ability to grab focus. And then when you fully press the button, it's like it just happens in almost real time. I took a pre-production sample of that camera when they became available out to do some street shooting in New York City on a Sunday morning back a number of months ago. And when I came back into the office on Monday, I gave the camera back to our folks on our product team who had loaned it to me. And they said, well, what'd you think? And I said, this is exactly what I said to them. And I hope you don't mind my saying it this way. I said, I felt like a god. It just puts so much power into your hands. And again, I'm not talking about 16 frames a second through the viewfinder or 20 frames a second when you're doing live view. That's icing on the cake. But it's one of those cameras that sometimes you look at the specs and they just sort of blur and become numbers. When you put that camera in your hand, if you know cameras, then you understand its power.
Wow, that's a ringing endorsement. I can say that.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
What about the CF Express card? Has there been any conversation that's come around that? Have people said, "Hey, can you make one with just for an SD card?" Or
I'm sure that sentiment is out there. There's always that yin and yang in a high-end, high-performance product about, with memory cards being like the last piece of the puzzle in terms of performance and speed, whether we're talking stills or video. There's always that yin and yang, if you will, of, compatibility with what came before it, what the customer is likely to have in their bag now versus getting the most possible performance. I think with this camera, people kind of realize that, okay, it's going to require a new investment in cards, a card reader or two, that kind of thing. But I think most people understood
that's a given. That happens with a lot of technologies. How often are we upgrading things that we use regularly?
That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Whether it's CD players or anything else. Our computer peripherals change frequently, and certainly other audio visual type things we have to update occasionally. I think it's something people understand. I'm sure there's sentiment out there among, some of the 5D Mark IV owners and so on that, gee, I wish this could take a CF card or an SD card. And I understand that. But
I know people that own horses that are still kind of ticked off about the automobile, but but then you ask them, well, how much have the oats gone up lately? And that sort of neutralizes the conversation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There you go. I think.
I mean, also because this is a camera that's really for high, let's just call them pros. I mean, it really is, or really serious wildlife and bird photographers. They're going to make that investment. They want the highest performance available.
Yeah. No, if your income depends on what you bring home at the end of the day, these are things you look at. Again, little performance tweaks. If you have a 10% advantage over the guy next to you, even a 2% advantage, that can make the difference between, a cover or sale of a photograph or just going home with a pretty picture to hang on the wall and stick in your files.
Absolutely.
So these are things you look at. These are real things. Again, for the regular consumer, prosumer, it may not be that critical, and it's not. But again, this is a top-end camera. This is your flagship. This is what the people who earn a living with cameras, this is the kind of camera that they use, and that's why that's important.
Right. And it does, I will just add this, that it does extend beyond that working professional, because while we understand it's a significant investment as far as cameras go, money-wise, if you appreciate photography and cameras, you don't want to pigeonhole this, I'll use that phrase again, as just a camera for the sports folks or whatever. If you're a dedicated enthusiast who loves cameras and loves photography, at the bare minimum, you should come into B&H and try this camera on for size. Just experience it in your hands. For some people, and wildlife photography is an obvious one, but for so many other aspects of photography, this can be the right answer.
Good points. Good points. Question for you. We've had some time now with the new R series cameras. How have they done as far as sales, reception, feedback, compared to what you expected or anticipated when you came out with these cameras? Because again, there was a lot of, suspense, and a lot of people are waiting because mirrorless was happening, and there was a little bit of a time lag. And now you're there, and you're coming out with new cameras, not just a camera, but now generations of and improvements upon the original ones. How has the reception been? Is it to your expectations? What are some of the pros and cons? Because I'm sure you get feedback on both of those. And again, this is all new stuff, so there are things to be thrashed out.
Right. It's hard for me to answer from the perspective of what our product planners thought versus actual sales results, because I don't work in either department. So a lot of times I don't see that data and information. In general, I think they're very gratified with where we've been up to now. I think in particular, our team is gratified with what the response to the system has been because of the lenses. The response to the RF lenses has been fantastic. And, certainly I think some people expected the EOS R to be targeted at an even more advanced audience than perhaps it was. The RP camera is selling very well. That's my understanding. And that is such a tremendous value as an entry-level full-frame camera. I think that, they're very, I'll use the word gratified again, with what the response over time has been for the RP camera in particular, because that, I think, really hit the nail on the head as something that those Rebel owners, those 80D and 90D owners could step up to in mirrorless and in full frame without making a multi-$1,000 investment just to get a camera and a lens. And the other thing, of course, is the compatibility that the system offers with existing EF and EFS lenses, that with a mount adapter, you lose nothing. It's not like all of a sudden your focus is half as fast, or you can only use manual exposure mode or anything like that. It is about as seamless a transition as you can get. And I think that's been a welcome sight, if you will, for many potential photographers.
The R5, give us some information about this, because we don't even have all the information yet the way I'm seeing it.
Let's review the information that was released and understand right from the top that when Canon makes an actual product announcement, at that point, we'll give all the specs and, product shots, front, back, top, and all that good stuff. And, full information on the camera becomes publicly available. That's with, any significant product, a lens, a flash, a camera, whatever. Occasionally, Canon will do what they call a development announcement, which is different. That comes ahead of time to tell the customer base and the industry, hey, we're working on something's coming. And in this case, they made the strategic decision that they wanted the customer base and the industry to know that this second generation of EOS R is coming. And they gave us actually more information over the course of 3 different announcements, ranging from February to April of 2020, than they normally do. So I'll be glad to quickly review them. They did say that it will have a new full-frame sensor and processor. You're absolutely right. They did not say what the pixel resolution would be. The things that they told us were the speed for still image shooting, up to 12 frames a second continuous with a mechanical
and
shutter.
20 frames with electronic.
20 with electronic. That the focusing system would include face, head, and eye detection, and animal detection for the first time in a Canon camera. That would not only be eye detection, but face detection and body detection on cats, dogs, and birds specifically is what they said. They did tell us that there will be an in-body image stabilization system, an IBIS system, that will work in conjunction with any optical IS that may be in a lens you attach to the camera. They didn't specify how or how many stops, correction, or whatever. They did say in the third announcement that it will have dual card slots, CF Express and SD cards, UHS-2 compatible. And then, of course, the big news was on the video front, where they said that this camera will have 8K video capability with internal uncropped 8K recording up to 29.97 frames a second. It'll do 4K up to 119.9 frames a second, up to 120 frames a second. 422 10-bit recording in H.265 when you use Canon log. Dual pixel CMOS AF in all 8K and 4K recording modes, and 8K raw recording capability uncropped at up to 30 frames a second. So those are the things they told us. There certainly are things that we still don't know. And it's, I've had fun reading a lot of the speculation and so on, but those are the things that we know. This, I can tell you, that information in and of itself was enough to generate. I've been with Canon for 23 years. I have never seen so much anticipation for a new camera as I have for this one, based on just the time that it's coming into the industry. And in terms of the excitement over the potential of this camera, based on that information that I just gave you. And again, there are lots of folks out there trying to fill in the blanks and so on, of which there are many. We still don't know a lot of stuff, starting with how many pixels is a sensor going to have. We know it's full frame. We know it can support 8K. Beyond that, we haven't heard yet. And we also don't know when the announcement date's going to be. There's been a lot of speculation. Well, maybe sometime in July or whatever. We don't know yet.
I'm going to make a prediction. In 2024, I'm not going to say whether it'll be the fall or the spring. I don't know, but sometime in 2024, they're going to announce the Rebel T12i, and all of these features will be in it for $499 with a kit lens. Am I right?
Well, you got to start somewhere. And, hey, it's, all kidding aside. I mean, it seemed like a big deal when the industry first saw 4K video in cameras. And I mean, now we expect to see it in an entry-level product like a Rebel T8i. So it's, that we certainly have that.
No, I just wanted to mention this comment that Rudy made about the anticipation, because just anecdotally, it's happening a lot. I mean, I'm getting emails and calls from friends, and I did an article not too long ago where I asked people what their Father's Day wish list, and a couple of people said, just get that R5 available. So it is making a stir out there. Even in, maybe it's just because it's quiet times and people are dying for the next thing, but it certainly is getting its buzz.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think another interesting offshoot from the R series, again, when you came out, that you had a good complement of lenses, and I was comparing specs. You have the RF 70-200 f2.8L IS USM, and I was comparing it to the full-sized 70-200 2.8 that you have. I don't have the exact model number in front of me, but the comparable lens for DSLRs. And what's interesting is that they are about the same diameter, about 3.5 inches around, but the R version of it, the mirrorless version, is close to a pound lighter. Excuse me, it's a little bit over a pound light. It's 2.35 pounds versus 3.26. This is about a pound lighter.
Right.
And it's also a couple of inches shorter. Now, I personally appreciate less weight and less size, and the older I get, the more I appreciate it. And I also appreciate the fact that all of that weight and bulk is not necessary. Now, what I'm curious about is to take all of this down in size. Were there any challenges matching the optics, the performance of the optics when you take this down in size, or is everything just flow evenly with it, generally speaking?
Well, I'll preface what I'm saying by saying that I am not an optical designer. Okay, but having said that,
yeah, if you played one on TV, what would you say?
That's a good. I should have said that. I'm not an optical designer, but I play one on TV.
There you go.
For decades, there has been a general rule of thumb in lens design, going way back before anybody had ever heard the word mirrorless, that the smaller you make a given lens of a given focal length and maximum aperture, the smaller you make it and lighter you make it, the harder it usually is to preserve or enhance its optical performance.
Yeah.
And that general rule of thumb continues to this day, which is frankly one of the reasons that lenses like the RF50 f1.2, which is by far the best 50 millimeter lens we've ever made, no question. That's part of the reason it's a pretty big lens. But that said, I'm sure there were hurdles that they had to go through to make that 70 to 200 f2.8 as compact as it is. I think
it is considerably smaller. It's not minimal. It's noticeable, and yeah.
Oh,
no
yeah.
About it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you hit it on the head when you said that the weight, it's almost a pound lighter. That's a big difference when you're talking about carrying something around all day, hand holding something for long periods of time, and so on.
Ask
and
anybody who's carried a 70 to 200 2.8 for a whole day, and they'll say a pound lighter. I'm interested. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it isn't just a number.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
The beauty is that they were able to preserve the optical performance. And continue with a constant f2.8 aperture. It's not like it slows down when you zoom out to 200 or whatever.
And that's usually what it takes to do this kind of a change. You have to compromise somewhere. And I know it's no compromise here. They basically held the specs.
Yeah, it's a remarkable achievement. Nobody in their right mind would knock the EF version of the 70 to 200 2.8, the latest version 3. Which is a fantastic lens. It has a great reputation, but here is something, truly noteworthy. And again, I think it points to that our designers, when the EOS R system was in its basic development conceptually, and as they pushed forward from there, I think they saw lenses as an opportunity here to really bring imaging truly into a new century of development, and to really push different envelopes with different lenses, and not just kind of keep doing the same things that have worked in the past. And that comparing the 270 to 200s is maybe as good an example of that as I can think of.
Also, Rudy, there's the new another lens I noticed from the R series is the RF 24 to 105. That's a f4 to 7.1. It's an IS-STM lens. That sounds kind of interesting too. And it's close focusing, half life size.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about that lens, because when we launched the EOS R system back in 2018, first with the EOS R camera and then a number of months later with the EOS RP camera, you can argue that in the designer's haste to bring out stellar RF lenses, I mentioned the 50 f1.2L RF lens, and certainly there have been some others, really premium attention-grabbing lenses, that you can make the case that maybe the one thing that they missed on the initial salvo was that affordable, lightweight, standard zoom, in particular once the RP camera came out, because that's such a value proposition to so many customers. So that's what this lens offers.
Yeah, it's there.
It's, the whole concept is a sufficiently broad zoom range that it can be useful in and of itself to the casual amateur, with very good optical performance, image stabilization with up to 5 stops of correction, in a lightweight and compact package, and an affordable package that would make the RP and even the EOS R camera in kit form, purchased body with the lens, at a really attractive price point. And, one thing people have, asked about is, that's fine, but that f7.1 maximum aperture is a little weird. What's going on with that? Clearly, one thing is that by going to a smaller maximum aperture at the telephoto end of the zoom, the entire lens can be made smaller and lighter, and yet without compromising optical performance in a general sense in terms of sharpness, contrast, that kind of thing. Another thing is we have to kind of re-educate ourselves a little bit as camera enthusiasts in this regard. Since the dawn of autofocus, back in SLR cameras I'm talking about, back in the mid-'80s, we've been schooled that you need a maximum effective aperture of f5.6 or faster to be able to perform autofocus. Yeah. Now, of course, in more recent SLR cameras, they've been able, not just Canon, but other manufacturers too, have been able to refine this so we can get autofocus at f8. Or faster with a lens itself or a lens plus extender in terms of effective widest aperture of the lens.
So the f7.1 comes in just under the radar. It makes it there.
Well, here's the thing. This is why I say we need to kind of re-educate ourselves.
Yeah.
Because with mirrorless, we're not dealing with a separate autofocusing sensor. We're doing autofocus right off the imaging sensor. And with the EOS R and RP cameras, we can do autofocus with lenses down to f11. In terms of the maximum effective aperture. So all of a sudden, the engineers have a broader canvas to paint with, so to speak. And we certainly understand that there are going to be, demanding enthusiasts and professionals who not just want, but in some cases need a fast aperture lens, an f2.8 lens or whatever. And at the beginning of 2019, we actually answered many of those questions with a trio of professional f2.8 zoom lenses for the EOS R system. But, here, for the target audience, the mass market, this is something that in today's world becomes viable and has some good trade-offs in terms of, like I say, compact size without really losing optical performance. So this is actually kind of an exciting lens for what it's intended to do.
Let me ask you, am I correct? From 4 to 7.1, that's a stop and a half?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I figured it was, which is not terrible. I mean, I think it's a small price to pay. But again, at the end of the day, what do your pictures look like? And if you're happy with your pictures, and from what I understand, this takes good pictures, that's what it's all about. And you work around it. Again, you do have image stabilization, so that slower speed is compensated for to a certain extent.
Yeah,
so that
and
definitely does
for
help.
what it's worth, obviously in terms of higher ISO performance, today's cameras certainly do a better job in general than where we were as an industry, even a couple, 3 years ago, let alone prior to that. So I'm not saying man lives and dies by ISO 3200 and above, but the fact is that, you can use ISOs like 400 on a general basis, where back in the day, a lot of photographers were reluctant to.
Yeah. No two ways about that. No, it's just, again, you're still getting a very, very, very acceptable picture, even if there's a little bit of noise going on in there. And again, you have to, like you say, you have to take a step back sometimes and look about what's the end result and what's the total picture. And it's not a bad price to pay.
I don't know about you guys,
John. I think you wanted to ask a question, right?
I did, but I just wanted to throw this in. And I'm down here now in Florida, and I'm shooting in some bright sunlight. And I still, when I start, getting 400, 800, I start questioning myself, and then I have to remind myself, no, you don't have to do that anymore. It's okay. It's okay.
Me too. Me too. All the time. 1600. Are you crazy?
Right.
Old habits die hard.
Right. So my question really is more of a general question about, Canon and the times we're in. I mean, you had mentioned earlier, Rudy, about, going into B&H and grabbing a camera and holding on to it. And those days are not happening right now. I assume B&H will be opening soon. But how is Canon and, camera fairs and expos are not really happening. What is Canon doing? Is there kind of a general, protocol or process that you can speak about in terms of, trying to get these pieces of gear into people's hands to try them and test them? And is it all about just video now and showing them as much as possible, through the internet? Or is this conversation not happening and we're just waiting?
That's a great question. And the world is in uncharted territory at the moment. None of us have lived through anything like this. And clearly, when we're talking about photography gear, to a large extent, we're talking about, when we talk about marketing, selling, getting enthusiasm and that kind of thing, we're talking about something where people they want to be able to, touch it. They want to be able to come to B&H and go up to, one of the camera counters and spend time with a knowledgeable salesperson who can, walk them through the features and so on. Clearly, in most of the country, or at least a lot of the country, we're not there yet. What can we do in the meantime? We've certainly tried to increase our footprint with virtual connection with our staff at dealers over the time that we've, been in this, if you will, lockdown state. And it's a little more difficult to reach out to the customers themselves, to, thousands or millions of customers. We continue to have, of course, an online presence, but it's not the same. And that's certainly something that, if this is to continue in terms of, big parts of the country being basically restricted in terms of what businesses can open and travel and all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, we're going to have to come up with, innovative ways to continue the excitement with current products like the ones we've been talking about. And certainly, we face challenges, as we look towards whenever the R5 comes out and begins to, be available for sale, is, finding ways to convey to customers who may not be able to just come to the dealer and handle it themselves. What is the beauty of this camera?
Before we part ways, selfie printers, those are coming on strong. What's happening with those? What's the latest word?
Printing in general has ironically achieved a real renaissance during this lockdown period in terms of basic office type printers and so on. Sales of them have jumped dramatically. But a sidebar to that has been in the category like the IV type printers, which target more of a younger audience. And they're not obviously much of a business product there. They can be, but they're clearly more intended for fun and so on. And especially, again, targeting that younger demographic. And our marketing team has actually done a really good job of connecting, even in these challenging times where, we're restricted in terms of, having to do things virtually. They've done a great job of connecting with many in that audience. And sales of the compact printers have really done very, very well in this period. So that's been a bright spot in a time of, obvious challenges to everybody.
Yeah.
Rudy, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. We're looking forward to having you back here 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, or whatever more times it'll be.
Anytime.
Always great talking with you. You know your stuff. And again, it's always a good learning experience. Thank you so much for joining us today, and be safe out there.
Well, thank you so much. Coming right back at you, especially on the last comment. And a pleasure to join the B&H team, and certainly the B&H customers. Pleasure to reconnect with you folks, even if it is via this medium instead of face-to-face. Look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you. And again, we're holding you to that box of donuts, my friend. You don't forget.
I'm in trouble now.
Take care, Rudy.
Thank you so much. You too.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Marc Farb of Sigma. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. The best way to support the show is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For links to gear and more information on today's guests, check out the show notes in your podcast app, or visit our homepage on the B&H Explorer website, and join the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. And now, back to the show.
Okay, we are back. Marc Farb is currently tied with Rudy Winston as our most welcome guest. This is Marc's 5th time on the show also. And with that, comes not just Marc Farb, the tech rep with Sigma, but also Marc Farb, the photographer. Most reps know their stuff, but Marc is different in that he not only knows his product line, he actually uses the gear that he promotes. If you follow Marc on Instagram, you know he shoots commercially under all sorts of shooting conditions. He even hangs out of helicopters like I used to do. The last time we saw you, it was a whole different planet out there.
It was.
And now we're moving along here. So what's new with Sigma? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Where do you want to start this conversation?
Oh my God. Lots of good stuff, lots of new toys. I mean, we've got the FP, we've got new lenses to go along with the FP. We've got, continuation of all the great glass that's out there.
Let's start with the FP, or let's jump back to the FP. I remember we talked about that at Depth of Field. I think it was relatively a new announcement at that point.
It was actually just announced, and
I think it was July or so was announced, right? It was in the past year for sure. Yeah.
I mean, we're coming up. Yeah, we're coming up close to about a year ago from the actual launch of the product. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great product. I mean, this is one of those pieces of equipment that it's probably one of the neatest tools that I've ever had in the toolbox. It's a camera and a cine camera at the same time with a flip of the switch. The coolest part is that the body of the camera is the size of a pack of cigarettes. It's the smallest mirrorless camera body on the market. It's the most accessorizable. Wow, I can't even say that word.
It's a tough word to say. I've been there.
It is. I mean, you can accessorize this camera a million different ways and not repeat what you just did. So regardless of what you're doing, this thing can actually perform in amazing conditions.
The FP is to me is sort of like a Mac Mini. It is a base component of a system. It's what you put onto it that makes the camera that you need. Is that right or wrong to say?
That would be a great analogy, to be quite honest, because whether you're doing cine, then you can set it up on your rails with an Atomos screen or some kind of a viewing screen, and your pull focus and your external microphones, the whole 9 yards. But then if you want to travel small, there's a bunch of lenses that you could throw on there to keep it small and compact as a camera. So it's a great tool. I mean, I've also been using it to do webcasting. So I can bounce back and forth. So while I'm actually webcasting, I can also record what I'm doing. I can do stills with it. It's got a built-in intervalometer. So like there was one point I wanted to do like a start to finish of a setup of a studio in the house, and I just set the camera up, let it go, and come back to it. Didn't have to hook up an external intervalometer or worry about switches and buttons and everything like that. It was a menu option. The fact that I can flip the switch and go from stills to cine, and the interface is pretty seamless. I mean, again, you guys know me for a lot of years, and as a still photographer, making that crossover going into the cine world, this is actually the perfect product to do that, to be quite honest, because you're looking at a camera that's still familiar, and then all of a sudden, when you bring up the new GUI, the new menu system, it's 90% of it translates to the same thing as a still camera. So yeah, you've got a timeline. Yeah, you've got a couple of other things that are on there, but as soon as you understand what those little icons are, it's just like working a still camera.
It's kind of cool that you're working in a situation right now where, again, everything we do right now went from being in person, face to face, to being virtual. And it seems like this camera was the perfect product in the perfect time for you, because it's not only an item that you use to produce photographs, but you're also using it to create the broadcast that you're getting all the information out. So you're using you're talking about how to use the tools, and you're using the tools to get that message out there. Am I right about that?
No, absolutely. The learning curve was next to zero. I was able to pretty much flip through the owner's manual to look at a couple of different things that I wasn't aware of that I could do, and then start experimenting with different things, make a few mistakes here and there. But suddenly I was actually able to create video, edit video to a degree, which is pretty amazing. Like I said, as a still photographer of more than 40 years, to make a transition that quickly and actually to be able to put something out that's usable almost immediately is pretty cool. The fact that I could use still lenses or cine lenses, I could use anything that I want to use. And, You could hook up external microphones. You could hook up XLRs. It's however you want to put all the peripherals on there. So it works great. Also, one of the neat things that's part of the camera right now is called a cinematograph. So it's while you're incorporating the essence of a photograph and the hint of a
these
movie.
are the animated stills you're referring to.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
that fascinates me.
It is really neat, especially when you've got the right subject matter. It's there are a few that I've seen out there that are a little creepy, but
well, that's good too.
Every new technology and art form has that little element to it. There's always somebody who goes, "Ooh, this is good. I'm going to do something strange with it."
Well, it's not even that. It's just the subtle body movements or the blinking of the eye. So it's like you've got that painting in the haunted house.
Yeah.
But there are, I've seen a bunch of them where it's just they selected the right subject matter and it's perfect.
Yes.
So it gives that photograph just enough flair to stand out in a digital world.
You guys just made an announcement of some new lenses, correct? I mean, a lot of folks have been waiting and kind of waiting to see when the time will come for the announcements. But do you want to jump ahead and tell us? I mean, to me, the 100-400, I was looking at Sigma Stage online on your guys' website, and they made that lens really look interesting. You want to tell us about some of that?
I do. Actually, I got a sample to play around with yesterday. And of course, the first thing I did was, as soon as I got home, unbox it and compare it to the old one or the other one.
To clarify, this is a 100-400 f5 to s6.3 DG-DN-OS lens.
First glaring difference is that when you look at the switches on there, you've actually got an autofocus lock switch instead of the AF manual override, manual focus selector, which is they've changed that up a little bit. So you've still got a stabilizer on there. So even though that you've got stabilization in the camera body, you're able to actually double dip, which is kind of cool, especially when you're shooting at longer focal lengths and slower shutter speeds. So this way you're able to take advantage of both stabilization systems. So it's not where you have to negate one or the other. And, size wise, it's actually about the same size. I think there's about a 25 gram difference in weight, which is negligible. And they actually made a provision on there for an optional tripod collar because, again, while you can still support 2 pounds or a little more than 2 pounds from a camera that's got a steel cage in it, you don't want to put the stress on the camera body mount that way.
Right.
So, but I mean, again, it's small and light enough that it's great for backpacking. It's great for anything that you want to do. And the focus on this thing is incredibly fast combined with the autofocus system of, the Sony bodies. So I've got it strapped onto an A7R3 right now and blistering fast focus. So, I mean, combined with all the different updates that they've had on their products, this timing wise, this thing is like fantastic.
It also has a very, very close minimum focusing distance. What is it? It's just over 5 feet at 400 millimeter.
Thereabouts,
and just under 4 feet at 100, and it's a quarter life size. Now that's pretty good. If you want, now that's specifically for photographing, say, butterflies that are on a flower, and you don't want to get too close. You can now do that. That's pretty good.
Well, and that's the neat part about it. It's like your pseudo macro lens.
Exactly.
So where a real macro lens is giving you true 1-to-1 reproduction, this is getting you halfway there.
And again, if you have a high-res camera, you could easily crop in. I know I'm using the crop word, another one of those 4-letter words. But the truth is, at a quarter life size on a high-resolution camera, you crop in, you still have a magnificent image, and you can go in as deep as you want.
Actually, I'm gonna teach you a little tech trick right now.
I'm open.
Rather than crop, scale the image. Scott Kelby actually teaches a really neat function of scaling your images.
Yes.
You're not throwing any information away, and it doesn't change the pixel dimensions of the original frame.
Excellent point.
So if you've got a 37 megapixel file, if that's what you're working with, when you do your scale, it still remains that 37 megapixel file.
Excellent
and
point.
I've seen, I guess it's up to between 900 and 1100% scaling. and there's no degradation to the image.
See, I'm just going around shooting with a fish and I just blow everything up now. It's so much easier.
There you go.
So did you mention already this lens has the dual action zoom where it can be a push pull zoom or a twist?
Exactly. That's a throwback to some older products in the industry.
Why?
The lens shade, just because we can.
No, but seriously, why would you want to have push pull a dual, twist or push pull? I'm just curious to know why you would go through that trouble.
Well, it is if you're doing long range stuff. So, like if you're doing bird photography or nature photography or aviation, being able to react quickly and actually where you're actually holding the lens at that point, you're supporting it further out, so
Yes.
you're more stable. So you're able to actually work the zoom a lot easier and compose faster on the fly.
That's
so
with push pull or with twist? Push
with
pull.
push pull. With
push pull. Okay, all right.
So, like for argument's sake, like go back to the earlier days when I had the surf images that I showed you guys, standing on the beachfront, using a 150 to 600 and zooming manually back and forth to compose. I can actually do this even faster and get a faster focus acquisition.
That makes sense
with the push pull.
Yeah.
So while it's a throwback to much older products in the industry, it's a great function to have. It just sometimes you can actually react faster than the motors can. So
well, it's the same thing with macro. I find sometimes you have to just turn off the autofocus if you're doing like 1-to-1 because it's just easier to do it that way rather than have this thing jumping all over the place, not knowing what it's looking at. So there are times when you do want older, quote unquote, older technologies or a little bit more manual in that sense. Okay, now I get it. That makes sense. I got it.
Yeah.
Well, you had also mentioned the 120 to 300 f2.8
yes.
as a recent favorite of yours. Do you want to mention something about that?
That's a odd focal length. Nobody else makes that focal length, and it's an interesting one too.
Well, actually, there was a manufacturer that announced in January, they had an epiphany, and they put a price tag of $9,000 on it.
Oh, wow.
So, of course, my local photo editor calls me up, and he's hysterical because I shot him a text and asked him if he heard the announcement. He calls me, and I hear laughing. You guys have actually had this in your lineup for like 20 years, and you've made a bunch of different iterations of it, and you've got a flawless product that works. And I'm like, yeah, you've got it's your 300 2.8 on steroids basically, and it can become your 200 to 400 with just the addition of the teleconverter for a small price as opposed to breaking the bank.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Now, it's an internal zoom lens, so it's just a little bit longer than what the 300 2.8 would be. But I've got a range of 120 to 300 millimeters with a minimum focus distance at 300 millimeters of 7 feet.
That's crazy.
So where I was saying this is a huge go-to lens for me is that whether I'm doing sports, whether I'm doing fashion, I'm doing indoor sports, outdoor sports, portrait work, event work, this lens is dynamite. Wedding photographers go ballistic over this lens because they could shoot down the aisle and have, the entire walk of the aisle. Concert photographers, once they do their 3 and out from the stage, you go back to the soundboard and this is the perfect lens to shoot the rest of the show.
Right.
Right. I did an event in New Jersey with a couple of concert guys, and they actually go around the country teaching classes on how to shoot concert photography. And the lead instructor did not ever hear of this lens before. And I put it in his hands. I said, go have some fun. He came running back to me like, this can't be real. I'm like, oh, it's real. He goes, you're not getting it back. So, it's one of those things and I've done that to a bunch of different people. So it's, and especially like doing the aviation stuff, the funniest look that I got was from one of the people that I'm very good friends with. I told him about the lens, and the performance, and he's like, yeah. And he's a hardcore Nikon snob. Everything in his bag is all Nikon, or it was until he actually tried that lens. He starts shooting with it, stops, looks at the lens, looks at me, kind of cocks his head off to the side, kind of like, when you make a funny noise and a dog is looking at you, and shoots again, and he goes, no. And he's looking at the camera, looking at me, he goes, "That's not possible." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." So it's just frame after frame, spot on. The things that you can do with this lens, it is just an absolute go-to. Fully weather sealed. It's built like a tank, and it's designed to perform.
Now, how new is
So
this lens? I'm sorry. Is that?
it actually was it was the first sport lens introduced in the lineup maybe 7 years ago.
It's okay. Yeah, I thought so.
So it's a tried and true product. We've actually had at least 8 different versions of it over the years. And I actually own 2 of the earlier versions, one pre-stabilization.
Mm-hmm.
And I still love using that lens because it's still that sharp and that spot on. The colors of the images, the glass is just phenomenal. No aberration. It's just fast focus. It's fully adjustable. It's fully customizable, like every other lens in the lineup. So you've got a tremendous tool in the toolbox that you need to know about.
So that's 2 zooms, telephoto zooms we're talking about here, but let's talk L mount, because in the June announcement,
that's a big surge. All of your newest things are for L mount,
right? You get some new L mount stuff, and I know
Yeah.
a couple of wide angles.
So yeah, we've the 16, the 30, and the 56 millimeter, which were designed for the other mirrorless systems out there. Now you have small compact lenses, fast primes, just like the 45 millimeter.
Were there any big challenges about adapting these lenses for the L mount, or are existing designs easily transferable to the best of your knowledge?
From what I understood from the beginning, no, there was very little R&D that had to go into it because of everything was already in place.
Okay.
So I know that when we first launched the L mount concept, that there was an incredible arsenal of equipment that was supposed to be available in a very short period of time. So, and again, we have an MC21, so you can actually take the EF mount lenses and pop them right onto the FP just as easily. So for, as that stopgap, you've got, again, as people don't like adapters, that's insane. The adapters are actually making your equipment more versatile and more usable.
I agree. So you have to get, as long as you're getting good adapters, that's the difference. If you want to buy cheap ones, yes, you will have problems, but good adapters,
exactly.
I love them. Yeah.
The guys in Japan, when they came up with these adapters, the MC11, the MC21, the MC31, they put a lot of thought behind it. They took the time to figure out all the do's and don'ts, and there's just all do's. Everything is functional. Everything works. There's no hangups. There's no lag. There's no reason not to.
Also, these were designed for very specific purposes, for very specific product lines, rather than having to come up with a product that will make everybody happy and be functional with all systems, which means you have to have compromises. So again, when you go this route, it's so specific and so focused that there's no reason for it not to be good.
And to be quite honest, that's why, all of the adapters are firmware updatable. Right. So, because times change, equipment changes, processes change. So as the changes happen, we're able to re-engineer the software side of it and put it back into the firmware and say, okay, here's an update, just like you do on your computer. So, when you have an operating system that has an uptick, well, our operating system in the lens has a new uptick, and there's a reason behind it. So this way, there's no lag, and it continues to work as it was intended to right from the get-go. Right. So
speaking of that, there's a new dock out too. Isn't that something that was announced? The UD11 dock in terms of firmware.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So and it worked just like the other dock.
Okay.
So it's just it's another opportunity to be able to keep your equipment up to date and customize it where it needs to be and make everything work flawlessly.
Let me jump away from gear for a quick second, and we can wrap up with this question unless Alan has something else. But I was watching the Sigma stage online where they, your CEO did product announcements. What are you guys thinking, or what are you how are you handling the crisis that we're in terms of getting gear into people's hands and letting them test it and basically make that connection with the customer now that we can't go to expos or B&H?
Well, I mean, as far as putting gear in people's hands, it's still encouraging people to purchase items through certified vendors. Mm-hmm. There are some rental houses that are renting different items, but we've we've done some virtual classes. We've done a lot of online kind of Zoom meeting, go to meeting, click meeting
Right.
type events, and
For the public.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just staying in front of people and letting them know that we're there, thinking about them. And to be honest, the times that I've done it, it's all been about photography. It's all been about the craft. It's all about thinking about what I want to be doing, what I want to shoot, what I've shot, and how to improve what I'm already doing. So it's just talking to people as if there's no change. Because again, at some point, people are getting out, people are doing different things.
Yeah.
So,
Alrighty.
obviously, you want people to stay safe, which is a main priority.
Yeah. What have you been shooting during this period personally? Have you been concentrating on something that you normally wouldn't?
A little bit more macro than usual. I've actually sitting in my yard. It's like watching Wild Kingdom because I've got all kinds of things that I've never noticed there before, and done some graduation stuff, believe it or not. So again, capable of socially distancing and actually doing some portrait work without being on top of somebody. Really no change. I mean, it's still shooting pretty much any and everything that I want to shoot other than the events that are not happening. So yeah, no sports right now. No aviation, but that'll change and open up again.
Sure.
Okay, Marc, as always, great having you on board here. Also, if listeners want to follow your work, and again, one of the neat things about you is that you're a rep for a company, but you're also out there using this stuff, and your work is good. You're actually a good photographer. If people want to catch up on things and see what we've been talking about, where should they go?
Well, there's definitely, you can go up to the Sigma Photo website. In the Sigma Lounge, there's actually Get to Know the Tech Reps. There's a little bio about me and some images, which actually I would like to update and put some new stuff up there. But some more recent images, Instagram, marc.farb.
All right.
Excellent. And I urge you to do it because Marc gets some great stuff. He's in interesting situations and environments, and I always look forward to seeing his posts.
Thank you.
All right. Marc Farb, Sigma, thank you as always for joining us today.
Appreciate you guys having us here. Thank you.
My name is Alan Weitz, and as always, on behalf of John and Jason, thank you so much for tuning in today.